Here's a lady who had a question. Actually, she called. I talked to a lady about her 3 boys, ages 6, 7, and 9. And she's concluding the process of getting a divorce from her second husband. And apparently her boys are famous for being bad. Other people are reluctant even to take care of these bad boys. Kind of sad when your kids are 6, 7, and 9 and already known for being bad, huh? Out of control. And she recognizes that she's been inconsistent in teaching them, been lazy, and that her kids just have been running wild. And so lately she's been reading the parenting book and doing Real Love with Friends, and has had to do things like, she says, she set schedules in the past but never really followed them, which is phenomenally confusing to a kid. I mean, you parents, those of you who've got kids, have got to picture this. The only thing worse than having no schedule is having a schedule that you apply intermittently, which to a child, gee, I mean, here you get to do whatever you want to, and then periodically a parent comes in and says, okay, we're going to have a schedule. And so the parent applies the schedule Monday from 6 to 7, Thursday from 8 to 9, Saturday from 2 to 3:30, and then every other Friday afternoon. Gee, what would you do with that as a kid? You'd think the world was nuts, or your parent was. It would just be crazy making. So you've either got to apply a schedule absolutely consistently, or don't bother at all. So now she's starting to apply a schedule. She's like, instead of the kids literally eating whenever they felt like it, doing whatever they felt like, now she's saying, okay, you have to do your chores before you snack and eat and play and do whatever the heck you want to do. And she discovered that, imagine this, the kids didn't especially appreciate this. Her coming in and restricting what they do. Well, of course they wouldn't. But now she's spending more time with them. She's actually loving and teaching them. She's showing them real attention, as opposed to just coming in and disciplining them and yelling at them. And yet there are setbacks. There are times that they get irritated at her, she gets irritated at them. There are times that she fails, and so she calls me, in a dither. What do I do? There are times I fail, and people tell me I'm a bad mother, and actually she went on and on for a little while, and I said, whoa, way too many words. So, are your children doing better than they were a month ago? Yes. A lot better. Yeah, a lot better. In fact, my children tell me that they really don't like the old mother. They like the new mother better. But there are times that they hate it, of course, that she, tells them that they have to do this or that thing. Well, then, overall, you're doing a better job. Their behavior's improving, they're feeling more loved, they're feeling more attention, but you're just making mistakes. So, you don't need me to tell you what to do. You already know what to do. Then what's the problem? Well, but I'm still making mistakes. And it turns out that she feels really bad when other people see her make mistakes. And she feels really bad when other people see her children make mistakes, and when other people see her children behave like little hellions and be angry at her. Well, who cares? And when she makes the mistakes, and when she screws up, and when the kids screw up, she can use all these as wonderful learning opportunities for her kids. And she can sit down with her kids, for example, and instead of only pointing out to her kids when they screw up, she can sit down with her kids, who are 6, 7, and 9, and easily old enough to understand this, and point out to them and say, so how are we doing? Look at the difference between now and a month ago. Look how much less anger we have in our family. Look how much less angry you are at each other than you were a month ago. Look at the comment you made to me, Fred, the other day about how you like me now better than you did the old angry, hateful mother, the old witch of a mother. Look how much happier everybody is, and it's because of how we're doing things differently. And that's why I'm doing it differently, not just to control you. We're happier when we do the right things. That's why. And I want to point out to you how much happier you are, how much stronger, how much more responsible you are. And I really think that's great. Notice how different that is than praising them, which goes like this. Oh, you guys are doing so much better. I'm so proud of you. That's garbage. Now they're trying to do the right thing to please the mother. That's no way to live a life. Instead, she uses it as a teaching moment and says, do you see how as a result of you doing the right thing, you are happier? Just like if an athlete trains more, the coach doesn't come in and say, oh, I'm so proud of you, and pets him on the head. No, the coach says, look, as a result of you training harder over the last 2 weeks, your time in running the 440 has decreased. Cool, isn't it? You feel better, don't you? Or if you're a gymnast, you're doing your routine better, whatever. Nice to see the results of your labors, isn't it? You just teach them and point out the correlation between their training, they're doing the right thing, and their improved performance. So it's always loving and teaching. It's not about praising them, which is worthless. It's not about teasing them with a carrot. So this mother's doing fine. Compare how they're doing now versus a month ago. Never compare how they're doing to perfection. Don't ever compare how you're doing to perfection, or you'll end up terminally discouraged. It's a terrible thing to compare yourself to perfection. It's just, it's awful. So, way to go, Mom. Way to stick in there and keep doing the right thing with them. John sent me a really great question earlier. Let's see. He says, I'm having a difficult time when it comes to real love and choosing a new partner. I see different qualities in every individual. Some people have certain attributes that I know I will need more unconditional love to deal with, while others have less. This presents me with a dilemma. I see a real love weight balance to my decision. It makes the most sense to choose the individual based on how much love I will need in order to remain happy in the relationship. Stated otherwise, why would I choose a person that will require me to continually get my unconditional love bucket filled by others in order for me to be happy with the partner I choose? On the surface, this seems selfish. Is this just my need for imitation love? Could I be back to trading imitation love but on a different level? How about this? I prefer a woman that is fit. So why would I ever consider a woman that is not fit or does not enjoy the things that I enjoy? Why should I sacrifice these things in order to make someone else happy? I'm having a difficult time understanding this aspect of real love. Perhaps I'm looking at this all wrong. Yeah, mostly you are. We'll get to this in a second. Maybe while I become more loving, the person I'm searching for will find me. Yeah, it's kind of all of that. When we go looking for a partner in real love, we tend to still see people in terms of imitation love. We really do. So when I say to people, so what are you looking for in a partner? And they immediately start listing imitation love qualities. They do it right off. So they go, well, let's see, I'm looking for somebody who's fit. What does that have to do with real love? Really? What? I'm looking for somebody who's witty. What does fit have to do with spit? Why? because fit would mean that they would be more fun for you, more entertaining for you to do things with, more physically attractive, which usually translates to sexually attractive for you, more entertaining to you, when people list the qualities they're looking for in a partner, they're looking for things that are more entertaining, fun, distracting, blah, blah, for you. Now, does that mean it's wrong to look for any of those things? No, I'm not saying that. I mean, gee, it's not like we're, going to sit in a lotus position and sing Kumbaya and all be like little Buddhists together and look for no superficial characteristics. I'm not suggesting that. But when we make those lists of superficial characteristics too long, we're going to cut out the people who may end up being just exactly what we're looking for. What I'm suggesting is that if we make the number one qualification that we're looking for, is this person capable of being truthful, and is this person absolutely interested in learning how to be unconditionally loving? And then is the number two characteristic the same thing, and number 3, 4, 5 through 10 that. Then 11 through everything else, whatever. If you'll really do that and not just pay lip service to it, you'll discover that 11 through whatever really are 11 through whatever, instead of just saying it just sort of to look good. You'll discover that they really don't matter as much. Really. Because once you get in a long-term relationship, anybody who has any brains in their head and who's been in a relationship for very long discovers that no matter how much of those other things somebody has, once you've been in a long-term relationship with somebody, if they don't have enough unconditional love, you don't care one whit if somebody isn't loving. You don't care how fit they are. Open up a People magazine, honey. Look at all the people who are getting divorced today. They're all fit and rich and popular and witty and clever, and they had all that stuff, and they're getting divorced. All that stuff didn't matter any. Zero. Nada. None. So we go looking for that stuff first, and it doesn't matter. Now, if you want it to matter to you a little, fine. But see, what we do is we go out and we say, well, okay, I won't make it matter first, but we really do make it matter first. That stuff matters way down the line. I just can't say that too much. And yet people talk about it and they don't mean it. You go looking for a partner who's loving. And if you really do, it won't matter to you if she's 10 pounds overweight or 20 or whatever. If you're looking for a partner who weighs 120 pounds and you really understand real love and she's 140, you'll go, I don't care. Now, if you're wildly into fitness and she's 400 pounds, okay, I'll grant you, you may not be able to stretch your parameters that far. I'm not being crazy here, but it will really stretch your criteria if you understand unconditional love. And then let me know if that didn't answer your question, or we can come back to it. Let me get to another one, and then we'll get back to some live ones, or Donna will remind me. Here's a woman who talked at the last immersion in Atlanta. She said she was afraid to tell her husband about a graduation trip with her daughter. She wanted to go on a graduation trip with her daughter, and her husband is a bit of a control freak. He wants to control everything she does and everything she thinks, and she wanted to go with her daughter, which is perfectly reasonable. I mean, you should be able to make a decision about going anywhere with anyone, anytime you want. And you certainly ought to inform your spouse. I mean, that's just like common sense, but you certainly don't need to take your spouse everywhere you go, and you certainly don't need the agreement of your spouse to go anywhere you go, certainly not with your child. So he was having a fit that she was going to go on a graduation trip with her own daughter. Why should you just go with her? You've always loved her most. You've been he just a fit. And she says, it's been about 2.5 weeks since I first told him. She says, I somehow stayed in acceptance and relative calm, except for my nervous stomach, as he went through a major tirade and did everything I was afraid he would do. Attacking, criticism of me and her, major victimhood, blaming. How could you spend the dollars, even though I committed that I would not spend anything beyond what was earmarked for her and her college fund. I can't believe you'd go without me. Now, this is an adult man who is saying, I can't believe you'd go without me on a trip with her daughter. Like, I can't believe you'd have a pajama party without me. She said to him, well, then I'd love to plan a trip with you. That was what I suggested, she said to him. And he said, well, we can't afford it. Well, that's his problem then. He doesn't want to go on a trip with her, then he can shut up and stay home. I suggested to her that she say to him, well, then fine, why don't you come on a trip with us? He said, we can't afford it. She said to him, well, then we could do this with her at another time. Then he got angry. He said to her, well, you'll just do anything she asks. She said to him, well, she didn't ask, I offered. He told her, you lied to me, you've been planning this forever. He just went on and on and on. And then she said this, much of his anger comes out that if I don't agree with his perspective and change my mind, I'm unloving and disrespectful and don't listen to him. That's right. And you've got to finally say that. You keep putting up with this. This is really important. When people whine and cry and act like little babies, one of the biggest reasons that they do that, now listen, is that we let them. We put up with it. We allow it. People pitch little fits and act like crying babies. Now, everybody listen to this. From the time that they're 3 until they're 53, because we listen to it. And for some reason, we feel like we have to. You don't. If you'd like, I'll write you out a permission slip, and I'll send it to you, and I'll sign it that says, you don't have to listen to this, and you can hand it to him. So you could tell him this. Let me explain this to you. You seem to believe, this is you speaking to him, you seem to believe that in order for me to love you, I absolutely must agree with you. Notice, however, that, and then if he goes to interrupt you, you say, no, I'm speaking now. And if he goes to interrupt you, you say, oh, I'll be glad to come back when you let me finish. So if he interrupts, you say, there's not a problem, I'll be glad to let you talk, but right now, I'm speaking. So when it's convenient for you to let me finish speaking, I'll return. And then you leave. And you say, when it's convenient for you, for me to finish, because I haven't interrupted you. So I'll let you finish speaking until you're done. But right now, I'm speaking. So I'll return when it's convenient for you to listen. And then when he's ready for you to finish speaking, then you finish all of this. You seem to believe that in order for me to love you, I absolutely must agree with you. Notice, however, that it doesn't work the other way around, ever. You don't ever have to agree with me. So, here's what I'll be doing. When you tell me your opinion, I'll make it clear when I've heard your opinion, but I won't be listening to it repeatedly anymore. From now on, I won't be doing that. I apologize that I've allowed that to go on in the past. That's been my mistake. I'll let you know when I've heard your opinion. Like, for example, this issue with our daughter and going on the trip. And then you explain to him his opinion. I understand that you feel cheated, lied to, that you feel like you haven't been invited. I understand all of that. And then you tell him his opinion, and you say, is that what you've been saying? Yes. Okay. I understand that. So you don't need to repeat it. To tell it to me more than once is simply clubbing me with it. And I can take it, but it's just not necessary. And so at some point, I'll tell you when I'm ready to move on to something else. I'll tell you that I understand it and that I don't need to hear it again. And you can certainly say it again, but at some point I'll say, you know, I've pretty much got that, and so I'm done. And if you care to keep repeating it, then you can, but without me. And if you persist, then I'll go into another room. See, you keep allowing him to repeat it, and you become the idiot, not him. See, he'll repeat it forever. If you allow him to, you're the fool, not him. Then she continues. This is her speaking. What's happened since I told him is that I feel like I live with 9 minutes of bliss and then 1 minute of butcher knife constantly, and I don't know when or how the butcher knife is coming. Graduation week with her had many nightmarish moments. He would say, can you believe she wouldn't even look at me when she read my card, followed by hours of hostility. Actually, it sounds like more than just 1 minute of butcher knife. Sounds like he goes at her all the time. I'm exhausted from trying, she says, to stay off the field of death. And here's my point to you. Listen to me. You're not trying to stay off the field. Trying is exhausting. You make a decision. There is, as Yoda would say in Star Wars, there is no try. There is do or do not. You make a decision that you're going to either get off the field of death or you're going to stay on. What's happening here in your relationship with your husband is that you're allowing him to make the decision whether you're on the field of death or not. He comes in and he starts whining and complaining and crying and attacking you and acting like a victim, and you allow him to make the decision for both of you whether you're going to be on the field of death. Well, dumb. Why don't you make the decision for yourself? When people come at me and go, wah, 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 and you, I get to make the decision whether I want to participate in that insane conversation or not. So I say, so what you're telling me is, I'm an idiot, I'm a terrible person, I'm hateful and deceitful and horrible, and is that right? Is that what you're telling me? Yes. I understand your opinion. Thank you. And then they say, but, and then they want to say it again. I say, no, I got it the first time. I got it, and you just told me that I understand it. So I don't need to hear it again. And if they go to say it again, I say, no, and I hold my hand up and say, I don't need to hear it again. And if your husband goes to say it again, you say, you're welcome to say it again. Notice, I'm not going to stop. You don't stop him. You say, you're welcome to say it again, but I won't be in the room when you do. Are you listening? You're exhausted because you stay in the room, and that makes you the fool, not him. He gets to be a victim all he wants to. But if you stay there and engage the fool, that makes you foolish too. It's like being in the room with a drunk. You can't stop somebody from drinking. But if you engage a drunk in a conversation, you become crazy with them. It's really important to get this. Just can't begin to tell you how important. Now, if the group has any contribution on that, let me know, because that victim thing is just really important. A past coaching client, this is from a coach, moved in with her boyfriend only to have the relationship begin to implode almost immediately. They're now to the point where simply being in the same room makes his blood pressure rise, and he blames her for his unhappiness. He's never shown any interest in real love, while she continues to at least make occasional phone calls. She's sad over the end of this 15-year relationship. She feels stuck and doesn't know how to get along with him. She doesn't believe she can leave for another apartment until she gets a better paying job and has some required surgeries. I encouraged her to become immersed in all the numerous real love opportunities to get filled, even when she won't drive 7 miles to a loving group. Any words of wisdom for her on other ways to deal with her despair and sadness over her unfilled expectations? Well, yeah, this just really isn't all that hard. I mean, I'd say to her, honey, what's your life worth? I mean, you're giving your life away for garbage. You're living with what you've done is you've already thrown your life away for 15 years, and just because you've thrown your life away for 15 years, because you've already done that, because you feel bad about the investment, now you're willing to throw it away for more. It'd be kind of like, because let's say that you've discovered that you paid too much for a car, and a friend told you, wow, you paid too much for that. Just because you discovered you'd paid too much for the car, now you're going to keep the car and continue to make too big of payments in the car instead of selling it and moving on. Why would you keep doing that? Why not get rid of it and make far smaller payments on a car that's cheaper? You're wasting your life. What's your life worth, honey? Staying with this guy is going to lead to nothing but misery. It says here, the guy has no interest in real love, there's no possibility of a healthy relationship, and yet you stay in it. That's like saying, I find myself in a toilet, there's no possibility of flushing it, but I'm not willing to get out. Does that make sense to anybody at all? And I won't even drive 7 miles to a loving group. Well then, stay in the toilet and don't flush it. It doesn't make sense in any imaginable way. And I talk to people just that straight. If your life isn't worth anything to you, then how can I possibly convince you that it is? My dad just told me after my daughter was born that no man would ever love me, that as far as he knew, no one ever had. So my shame floats around that fear for myself and my daughter. This definitely affects my relationship with men. I would take this so far as to say that it has affected my relationship to God. Yeah, I bet so. It cannot be overstated how much our relationship with our parents affects every subsequent relationship that we have. For a little child, the way they relate to their parents is the way that they end up relating to, unless something really dramatic happens, ends up affecting the way that they relate to pretty much every subsequent adult. And in most cases, determines the way they end up relating to God. The way that our parents relate to us defines the world. The way our parents love us defines love. It defines the universe, it defines relationships, and unless we're taught dramatically different at some point in our lives, in many cases it destroys us. And I see that over and over and over again. If you want to see any theme enacted more, that's the one thing that's enacted most commonly in dramatic movies and in serious books, is that the way our parents treated us is the way that we continue to behave in our lives for the rest of our lives. Just finished my novel, by the way, today, which was a hoot. Let's see, I answered the mother's question about the children. The 6, 7, and 9, and the partner. So now we can do live questions, so you're going to have to give me one. Is this one the Stephen, almost 24? It's not highlighted, so I didn't see it. This week, my son Stephen, who's almost 24 and living on his own, has lost yet another job due to years of poor choices and attention deficit. He had 4 cents to his name. That'd be pretty close. If he and I got together, we'd have 8 cents to our names. And his phone was turned off. He had been many days without food until late in the day because there is no food. I had a chance to counsel him about making choices and asked what he has learned. I made a trip to see him and saw his living conditions are extreme poverty. While out looking for a job, the next day his car broke down and is not worth fixing. I am his only resource for any financial help. I've gotten very angry with him about this. I want to love him and for him to feel it, but now I feel I have to help him to buy a new car. And while I have money to do this currently, it may affect me in the near future. I had to hang up the phone several times, telling him I couldn't talk as I was not feeling loving. I started yelling at him for his expectations of me. I'm ashamed of my behavior and want to learn how to help him most. Can you help me with some perspective? Wow, that's tough when our kids get in that kind of position. But this is a place where I would suggest that you talk to a lot of people who have some experience with helping people financially, because rather than getting him a car, there are a lot of things you can do. Because if you simply get him a car, he'll ruin it too. It'd be like giving him money. He's already ruined one, he'll ruin the next one. So there are lots of things that can be done. He can get welfare assistance from the state. He can go live in a homeless shelter. I'm not kidding. He can get food stamps. There are lots of programs and other ways that other people can help him. There are things that are set up by agencies. There are job assistance programs. There are whole programs set up by the state to help people like him without you becoming the one tit that he goes to consistently where he gets all of his help. He's used to doing that. And then you become all wrapped up in, I have to help him. And then he becomes all wrapped up in his expectations of you. And then there's that horrible web of expectations and disappointment and anger, and it's a terrible cycle. So rather than giving and giving and giving, you could give him, instead of all that, you could give him love and support and faith and suggestions and love and teach. And Stephen, here's the name of somebody down at the Council of blankety blank who I've discovered can give you great assistance with whatever. Here is a bus token that I can give you that will get you down to the blank This will get you to here's a great shelter that I've discovered down on the corner of Mesa and Porcupine that, offers meals for blank, instead of rescuing him the easy way, because that's what he wants you to do. He wants to be able to sit back and have you hand him TV dinners while he sits in an easy chair in an air-conditioned apartment and pays his rent and does nothing. While what he really needs is to be told how to provide for himself in the long term. And that's what he's not learning how to do. And until he learns how to do that, you're going to be providing for him forever. So that's my suggestion. I have a fair bit of experience doing this with prisoners, so you'll just enable him and cripple him. I'm realizing that I've taught my 6-year-old the same getting and protecting, this is from a mother, 6-year-old the same getting and protecting behaviors that I've found so difficult from my partners in romantic relationships. Being demanding, self-focused, angry, impatient, a user, critical. What a nightmare. Of course, that's kind of what we do. We teach everybody around us these things. And we teach them because we trade with everybody around us the same behaviors. We trade with them the same forms of imitation love. And I created this. I'm feeling overwhelmed with the number of getting and protecting behaviors I've taught him. What is a good beginning to work with him so it doesn't feel like an insurmountable task of re-education? Read the victim book. Because if he's using an overwhelming number of getting and protecting behaviors, he is a victim. Guaranteed. Victims use all the getting and protecting behaviors. And the victim book will actually take you through how do you respond to a victim who blank. So the reason I tell you to read the victim book is because that's the way you phrase the question. How do I respond to a child who uses a large number of getting and protecting behaviors? And it would take me all day long to answer a question that general. If you gave me a specific one, I'd be more specific. So you understand, I'm just kind of carrying on the discussion with the woman who was talking about her son who has been failing and has a car that's failed and so on. And one woman said, my daughter went dumpster diving for food. And she was saying, how do you feel about that? And, so what? If that's what it takes for a kid to realize that life isn't a free lunch, so what? I've been out in the woods and eaten things that people can't imagine. I've eaten insects, I've eaten garbage, I've eaten rotten food, and when you're hungry enough, you'll eat anything. And if the price of learning responsibility is pain and hunger and suffering and going to welfare offices and, well, so what? It takes what it takes. I've known guys who have not really learned what responsibility is until, for example, they've been in prison. I'm working with a man right now, well, I've worked with a lot of prisoners, but a man that I'm thinking of right now, I just spent a large portion of my day today. I went down to the Department of Paroles and Pardons in Atlanta, down to one of the government towers down in the middle of the Capitol area down there, and I spoke to one of the parole people down there on behalf of a prisoner that I've been writing to in Macon, and he's been in prison now for 20 years. He murdered a man almost 20 years ago, and it's taken him 20 years to learn that he's been an irresponsible, incredibly selfish, completely focused on himself human being. He's never cared about anybody but himself. He's been studying real love for the past couple of years. We've exchanged easily 100 letters and phone calls over that period of time, and I spent all day with him in person down in the prison down in Macon a couple months ago, and it's taken him all these years to come to that realization. I've had similar experiences with prisoners in other states across the country, and one man told me that it has taken him all of his life to come to the realization that he's just now realizing what love and happiness is, and he says it's been worth it. And that particular man is a man that I visited not long ago in a prison in Missouri, and boy, that took a while to find that prison. I visited him in a prison out in the middle of nowhere in Missouri, and he told me this. He said this has been the greatest experience in his life, discovering real love. He's 85 years old, sitting in a maximum security prison in Missouri. So he says it's been worth the experience of his entire life finding real love at 85. And you're worried whether it's worth your son experiencing a little hunger and going down to a welfare office. It's worth whatever it takes to learn the lessons of life. And, sometimes we have to bleed a little bit. It's worth it. Somebody asked what the name of the novel is. It's called Under the Bridge. And it's about a 12-year-old boy who is leading a tumultuous and rebellious, difficult little life, and whose life is rather revolutionized by meeting an older man who simply unconditionally loves him. And without using the terms real love or anything, that's all the man does, is love him. So pretty fun. Somebody asks, do you think 6 years old is too young to take a boy to a prison to see what it's like? He wouldn't understand it. My young guy still occasionally hits, and I told him that if you do that when you're older, you'd go to jail. A 6-year-old wouldn't understand prison, and B, they wouldn't let him in. Previously you mentioned using a zip tie as an educational tool about what jail is like. He's not too young to understand a zip tie. I'd actually like to take him to a prison, but I got feedback that he might be too young. He wouldn't understand what prison is like. He wouldn't have any idea what it's like to actually be locked up for weeks, months, a year at a time. He couldn't visualize that. He'd see the prison bars and see it as like romantic. No kidding. He'd think it was like cute. And they wouldn't let him in. But here's a lady online who suggests that the cops came and put her son in the back of a cop car and handcuffed him. If you can get a cop friend to do that for your kid, bless you. That'd be lovely if you could get the cops to cooperate with that. You just have to get a friend who'd be willing to do it for you. And the police, if you can arrange a thing like that, will very often do a thing for you to cooperate with you. You just got to find one who's willing to do it. Because, on the whole, the police love to do things preventatively. Police do not like having to deal with adult men and throw them in prison. It's not fun. They love to keep kids out of jail. Here's a lady who wrote saying, I'm sitting in the living room of my minister doing the laundry. I come in every week, and I used to live here in their basement. The minister's wife has a very messy house and a lot of little nicky-nacky things, and in it there's a dish that says, "A good mother makes a happy home." My question is, why does that irritate me so much? Granted, it is incongruous with what else I find in the home, since it's a really messy house, but is it just me? Maybe it's the word good, or maybe it is makes. I think maybe she's just feeling irritated. Shouldn't it be contributes to or invites or something? I think maybe you're just feeling kind of irritable. But anyway, she's just, she says, I'm just feeling overwhelmed and disgusted with the perfect mom syndrome. Yeah, actually, she just pretty much kind of admits that. She says women who work at all of God's guidance, including organizing and cleaning their homes, teaching the children to work, doing the best to love their husbands above all else other than God. What happened to all of that? This is a woman who was divorced from her husband and is feeling a little bitter toward men, which is, an understandable feeling after you've been abandoned by your husband and treated poorly by men. But it's easy to cast blame around. Not all men are bad. Not all women are bad neither. Not all women are good, and not all men are good. So all you can really ever do in your life is improve your own. And it's so easy to look around and find fault with other men, other women, and shoot, there's so many faults that's easy. All I really got time for in my life is improving me. Although periodically I surely do enjoy the sport of finding fault with you, whoever you are. So let me know if you've got any more live questions. I think I've exhausted my emailed questions. Let's see. I used to have such a great relationship with my youngest son when my sister died, and when I got divorced, he was there to comfort me and help me through it. He was the youngest at the time. No, he was young at the time, and we did lots of things together. Now he's in his mid-20s, and he's such an angry young man. It seems like he has a chip on his shoulder about everything. Whenever I speak to him, he responds with grunts or angry responses. He's disrespectful, and it really hurts my feelings. Sometimes I confront him about his anger toward me, but that doesn't help. It just seems to make it worse. Well, look at the words here. I used to have such a great relationship with my youngest son. And that's really an illusion. Great relationship means that you got a lot out of it, because look what follows. When my sister died and when I got divorced, he was there to, look what it says, comfort me and help me through it. This is really common and phenomenally dangerous. And parents do this all the time. I ask parents this in seminars all over the country. I say, so how many of you here have ever experienced unconditional love? And many people say, oh, I have. And where did you get it? From my children. If parents think that the only place they've experienced unconditional love from their children, then I really, really pity your child, because we should never turn to our children as a source of either love, support, comfort, nothing. Because love should be a one-way flow from us to them. And anytime we turn to our children for a source of anything, it's an absolutely unbearable burden to them, because what they need is love from us, period. One-way deal, that's all. And it has to be absolutely unconditional, with no expectation from us of anything in return. If we expect anything at all, they can't feel unconditionally loved. And look what you say here. When my sister died, he was there to comfort me and help me, and I promise you, you expected that. Because then look what happened. We did lots of things together, then he got in his 20s, he got angry, he got a chip on his shoulder, then he responds with grunts or angry responses. He's disrespectful, and it what? hurts my feelings, which means that you have enormous expectations that he will be respectful, kind, loving, and all those things. It absolutely proves that you expect love from this kid, and he feels it, and it's horribly destructive to your relationship. It's the reason that he's disrespectful. It's why he's angry at you, because he doesn't feel loved unconditionally. This is the whole problem right here, is that you don't love him unconditionally. It's the entire answer to your question. It's something you need to learn to do. And you need to have a conversation with him, explaining to him that you have not been loving him unconditionally. And I know, I really do, how hard this is for you to hear. It's like really scary, but still true. Anytime we go to expect our children to love us, it's just devastating to them. I'm separated from my husband, and I have been for 6 months. He's called me many times saying that he wants to get back together with me, but only on the condition that I never talk again about his affairs. He won't talk about it, won't go to counseling, nothing. He just wants to start all over again with a clean slate. What should I do? If you want to have a loving relationship with your husband, it's got to start somewhere. And if you're the person who's learning about real love, pretty much you can't expect your husband to start off with real love, can you? So unless you think that your husband is actively having an affair right now, why not start with real love with you? So somebody's got to start. Is it fair that it's you? Sure, why not? Somebody has to. So you sit down with your husband and you explain to him that you're willing to start over. Like he says here, he wants to start all over again with a clean slate, then why not? And you explain to him that you've never loved him unconditionally. How could you have? If you had been loving him unconditionally from the beginning, why would he have gone out and had an affair? Now, that doesn't make you responsible for his affair, please. The reason he wouldn't have had an affair is because he hasn't been feeling unconditionally loved from the time he was a kid. I mean, it's his parents that caused all this, really. But you couldn't have helped. If you had brought sufficient unconditional love into the relationship from the beginning, it's very unlikely your marriage would have degenerated to the point where he would then have gone out and had an affair. It would have made a difference, at least. So explain to him. Say, look, I didn't know anything about unconditional love either, and so what I'd like to do is I'd like to start over too, and I'd like to learn how to unconditionally love you. And let me give you some examples of how I didn't unconditionally love you. Now let me give you some examples of what unconditional love would look like. And I'm not going to get there overnight, but I'd like to learn how. And let's see if that can make a difference. And then you learn how to be loving. And you don't expect him to give you the love you need. You get that from people who have it. And you see what kind of difference that makes in your marriage. And see what happens. Now, the more loved you feel and the more unconditionally loving you become, it's very likely over time that at some point in the future, he may get to the place where he feels safe enough with you that he may be willing to talk to you about his affairs. But right now, in an atmosphere of not feeling loved, why would he be willing to talk to you? I mean, in the absence of real love, he wouldn't feel safe. There's no way he'd talk to you about his affairs. That make sense? No way. How could he? That's why he had the affairs in the first place, was he didn't feel loved. And so far your marriage hasn't changed enough that he'd want to. So to go to him and say, I demand that you tell the truth about our affairs. Well, that's nuts. He wouldn't. So just love him. And then let's see what happens. And the more loving you become, you simply gather information. Now, if over a long period of time he doesn't change one bit, if, for example, he went out and he kept having affairs, he kept having sex with other women, well, then you might have a decision to make whether you'd want to stay with him. But, gosh, in the absence of real love, gosh, why leave a marriage before you've tried the one thing on the planet that makes a marriage stay together? Make sense? So, we'll see you all next week in Phoenix, which is where we're going to have our seminar about real love. I'm looking forward to that. And what now? And Atlanta, we're going to have a seminar in June. The PBS special comes out starting tonight, and then periodically in stations all over the country. Novel comes out soon. A few of you, I'll send you a copy of that if you beg. And we'll see you next week because we love you. So see you then.